Priyadarshini? Priyadarshini? Kindly unmute yourself. One second. You are in the name of Priya Velan, right? We are not able to hear you. Vigneshwari? Priyadarshini? Now unmute yourself and talk now.
Ma'am, is it audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you are audible.
Ma'am, you are going to share the screen, no?
Yeah, I'm going to share the screen. Shall I check now?
Yeah, do it.
Yes, ma'am. Priya, ma'am,
Yes,
you are
ma'am.
coming from only one gadget, isn't it?
No, two. Priya Velan and then G and Priya.
D and Priya. Okay. Given co-host for both the gadgets, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, my screen is visible, ma'am.
Your sharing screen is not visible, ma'am.
Okay, let me check.
Yes.
Good morning and welcome, Olga, ma'am. You have to unmute yourself, ma'am. You have to unmute.
Thank you for letting me know. Good morning. Good to hear you, ma'am.
Yeah, your voice is audible, ma'am, and your video is also good.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm fine.
Yeah, yes. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Olga, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Olga, ma'am, good morning.
Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning. Good
Good
morning,
morning,
sir.
good morning, ma'am. Good
Good
morning,
morning,
ma'am.
sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, able to share the screen now?
Yes, I am trying, ma'am.
In the down, you have there are 5 icons. In that,
Okay.
in green color, you have share screen option are there. Yes, ma'am. Now we are able to see your screen.
Ma'am, is my screen
Yes,
visible?
ma'am. Visible. Good, ma'am.
Okay. Here I have to go and annotate the participant, right,
Yes.
ma'am?
Just minimize your screen, ma'am.
I have to minimize the screen.
Yeah.
Shall I do this thing alone? Disable annotation for others. Shall I click?
That, the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I will click that one and then I will.
Disable the unattended participants like that. Click on. I think that is the third option
Disable annotation for others.
for the participants. Participants will be there, no? What is that?
For others, it is coming for others.
Yeah, okay, ma'am.
It's okay, ma'am. It's okay.
I have to click that one and I click that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Then fine, ma'am.
Good morning to all of you.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, ma'am. Now audible, ma'am. Olga, ma'am, do you going to present the screen on your own?
Yeah, I will do now. Thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, madam. Welcome you.
Thank you, Dr. Gita. Thank you. Good morning.
Yes, ma'am. Visible, ma'am. Visible.
Thank you.
Priya?
Morning, sir.
Start பண்ணு. Madam, good morning, ma'am. Good morning, all of you.
Morning. Good morning,
Good
sir.
morning, good morning,
morning,
good
sir.
morning, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Sir, a warm greetings one and all connected here. It is truly an excellent opportunity for me to welcome you all today for 1 week international online faculty development program on the topic visual practices and security. I welcome you all the eminent speakers and guests from all over the country who over different walks of life have came here to share their knowledge and vast experience with the learner community. We are proud to announce that this 1 week international online faculty development program on visual practices and security is being organized jointly by Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Karapakkam with Dr. MGR Educational and Research Institute, deemed to be University Faculty of Education, Chennai. A friendly welcome is an outstretched hand. Looking forward, respected Dr. T.M. Gnanasodari ma'am, Assistant Professor, Department of Educational Planning and Administration, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, for extending her hospitable welcome. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. My voice is audible, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am, it's audible.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good morning to one and all. On the outset, I thank God Almighty for this 1 week international online faculty development program on virtual practices and security day 3. It's my pleasure to extend a cheerful welcome to you all. Your presence makes us very happy. I feel extremely honored to welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University and Dr. MGR University, respected registers of both universities, respected Dean Controller of Examinations of both universities, and I profusely elated to take an opportunity to welcome the conveners of this program. I wholeheartedly welcome Dr. P.C. Nagasubramani, Organizing Secretary, for his tireless work to make this program a grand success. I welcome the eminent speakers who are here to share their knowledge and expertise. I welcome Mrs. L. Maria Suganti and Dr. L. J. Stephen, sir, who are here to introduce the speakers. And I welcome Dr. V. Shamila, the backbone of this 1 week program, who is ready to render the vote of thanks. And I welcome all the participants who are awaiting to gain knowledge from the experts. Once again, I welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your hospitable welcome. It is a moment of extreme pleasure to pronounce our resource person. I would like to call upon respected Ms. Maria Suganti, ma'am, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Education, Dr. MGR Educational Research Institute, Chennai. Welcome you, ma'am. It is a moment of extreme pleasure to pronounce our resource person. I would like to call upon respected Ms. L. Maria Suganti, ma'am, Assistant Professor, Faculty of Education, Dr. MGR Educational Research Institute, Chennai. Welcome you, ma'am.
Maria? Maria, are you there?
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible now?
Yeah, you're
Yes, ma'am.
audible.
Yes, thank you. ma'am. A pleasant morning to the beautiful gathering with us. It's my immense pleasure to lecturer, College of Education and Language, Lebanese French University, Able, Kurdistan, Iraq. But she is from Ukraine.
Suvanti, voice is breaking.
She has found enthusiasm
Ma'am, your
for
voice is breaking, ma'am.
learning and
Maria, your voice is breaking, Maria. Maria, your voice
hard
is breaking.
work. Am I audible now,
Yes,
ma'am?
ma'am. Now
You're
it's
Maria.
audible, but in between it is breaking. You check, Maria.
Now it's okay?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Ah.
Just cut your
Okay.
video and present your presentation.
Yes, thank you. A pleasant morning to the beautiful gathering with us today. It's my immense pleasure to introduce the guest speaker of the session, Dr. Olga Bebenko, lecturer, Department of English Education, College of Education and Language, Lebanese French University, Able, Kurdistan, Iraq. But originally she is from Ukraine. She has profound enthusiasm for learning and persistent hardworking made her to contribute more to the field of education. Her contribution to the field of educating students is humongous. She has worked as lecturer in various prominent international universities from Ukraine, Saudi Arabia, and currently in Iraq. She did her Bachelor's of Philology and Teaching in Luhansk, Taras Shevchenko National University, Ukraine. She did her teacher's training program and both of her master's program in Russian philology and English philology from the same university. She did her doctoral degree in philological sciences at GS Skovoroda Kharkiv National Pedagogical University from 2006 to 2009. She has 19 scholarly publications right now. She has been a part of 25 conferences and workshops as a resource person. Dr. Olga is a person of dedication, creativeness, and perseverance. It's our privilege to have an eminent person with us today for this International Online Faculty Development Program. We are so happy to have you as a resource person through this virtual portal. I'm immensely pleased to welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Maria, for such an amazing introduction. Thank you. Really pleased and honored to be here. So I would like to thank, first of all, the person who invited me to this amazingly resourceful program. It was Dr. Vinaras. He's my colleague, so he invited me, and I'm really grateful because I've been enjoying for all these first 2 days. Together with my colleague, we joined the program, and we are really happy to be here. So I would like to thank Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University and the Educational Research Institute in Chennai for their invitation and for letting us be present and learn from you guys, as well as sharing our own experience. I would like to thank all the chief patrons, Professor Panchanatham, Dr. Thiru Shanmugam, Dr. Arun Kumar. I would like to thank patron Dr. Gita Lakshmi. Thank you for patronizing this activity. I would like to thank Dr. Naga Subramani. He was in touch, and it shows the professionalism and the persistence and devotion to the matter. Really helpful. Thank you, Dr. Naga. And thank you, Dr. Sintamish Pavai. And I'm really amazed with the number of participants here. Thank you, everyone who joined the program across the world. And I think the presentation will be helpful to you guys as well, disregarding the area of your specialization. So I will be talking about visual artworks in teaching the humanities online. So the focus is on the humanities primarily, but you can be creative enough to try applying these practices in other areas of teaching. So visual artworks. The agenda for today, let me move forward. Sorry, yeah. The agenda for today. So first of all, we start contemplating the idea of teaching the humanities online through visual arts. So what is the objective behind these practices? We will discuss the objectives, what we plan this for, and then we will discuss such an important matter as how to select visual artworks for teaching the humanities online, as there are plenty nowadays, and what is the criteria for selecting those artworks. Then we will move to a practical part, an analysis of a painting and sculpture in relation to philosophical concepts, historical and or literary work. I have chosen 3 areas of humanities, philosophy, history, and literature, as they're kind of interrelated within the scope of my research and teaching practice. But you can expand this field applying the same methodology. I will introduce the scheme, the methods, how to follow the analysis with your students and how to engage them in online practice of analyzing the painting or sculpture in relation to the subject matter which you teach, whether it's philosophy, history, or literature. Then we will talk about motion picture or movies in relation to the same fields, philosophical concepts, historical event, or literary work. And we will have 2 practical examples for this activity. Okay, so the first part, contemplating the idea of teaching the humanities online. So it's kind of related to in-person teaching. So it's kind of related, but it's more important even nowadays to engage the students more, to touch their emotional sphere. I've heard presenters here in this program in the first 2 days, and they were talking about kind of a similar engagement, the motivation, and this is an important matter. So moving forward. So one of the main objectives of bringing the visual artworks into teaching is bringing students' attention to the subject. Sometimes students enroll in a class with no camera on, with no mic on, and then you feel like, are they really there? And they may not be there with you. They may be there physically, but their minds could be somewhere else. So bringing students' attention, I put it as the first objective for a reason, as we started teaching online 2020, March 2020, and I was always wondering, are they there with me? And when I started bringing more resources to catch their attention, including the artworks, it really worked. It really worked, and they were sharing with me their own artworks, which they were relating to a literary work, for example. And then we need to hold students' attention. Holding their attention, catching it is good, but then how to hold it, So this visual artworks is a solution. And then touching students' emotional sphere, as you know, then when it's related to associations through colors or shapes or lines or texture, which can be also visible, the texture, you would say, oh, how you can touch the texture? Yes, you can through the screen. In modern technology, at this level of development, you can even see the texture. And of course, imagery, this imagery which is transferred through a literary work and needs some cognitive activities. You can give it straight away in the screen. Of course, not interrupting the imaginative skills of the students themselves. And then you make the subject matter memorable. It stays in memory. So we studied Hamlet with the Ophelia picture, which we'll talk later on. And they remember how Ophelia died, what happened to her, because they studied, they felt it, they've seen each flower. And then, of course, it's development of students' own imagination, you know, the skills to imagine. This works on their creative skills. So development students' ability to verbalize their feelings when we discuss the artwork in relation to the academic material. And then developing students' ability to draw connections or compare and conclude. Especially it's valuable for historians, for people who draw conclusions from this or another event. And then it's strengthening students' analytical skills and critical thinking. And again, we have to contextualize and visualize those concepts, those abstract concepts which we talk about. For example, if you teach existentialism, the school of philosophy, it's very difficult to explain just on fingers, and especially if you work online. But when you bring a contextualizing picture, painting, or a motion picture, a movie, then it's another story. It's more tangible, it's more understandable, it's more approachable than a mere abstract concept. And then I faced the question of selection, visual artworks. How do we select them? What is the criteria? First of all, we all start that it should correspond to the content of an online lecture which you deliver, of course. And then I usually tell my students that we do not have time for simple artworks. We should study the great artworks, the immortal ones, the artworks of high artistic value. But this is, of course, arguable, that you can argue with me then saying that other artworks also deserve discussion, and this is up to the lecturer to select a proper material. Yes, but first of all, I recommend starting with great artworks. This abandonment and shifting to copies and simulacras, the copies of some great things. It's kind of trend nowadays, and still staying with the old school and promoting the classics, the immortal works is the duty of an educator, in my opinion. And then we have to consider the learner's age, the cognitive and language skills, especially if the language of instruction is not a native language. And then consider the predominant culture. For example, today I will bring a picture in relation to a philosophical concept of existentialism, which I wouldn't recommend myself to be selected for teaching in the Middle Eastern cultures for some reason, for nakedness of the body. So you have to be considering the cultural norms and not violating them. It's good for your own practice as well, and for achieving the academic progress of the students. And then consideration of students' personal interests. If you know your students, you know them by name, and you know what they are up to, you know what they like. So why not? It will catch them more, especially if it's related to their interests. And it should be eye-catching content and form of the artwork. Eye-catching because especially we work online. So here in part 2, I'm introducing kind of a scheme which a lecturer can follow when bringing the painting or sculpture for a discussion in relation to a particular subject matter. And then I will bring examples. So this is a theoretical part, which I recommend to everyone. It's been developed through years of bringing the artistic works into classroom. So first of all, the glossary. The glossary has to be used. It's kind of, we're discussing the shape, form, composition, color, palette, brush stroke, background, texture, proportion, symmetry, asymmetry, techniques used, medium, pattern, mood, line, light, emphasis, and material what the artwork is made of. So in the first part, a lecturer usually provides the general information about the painting or sculpture. I've chosen this too, but you can bring more of artistic works. And then you introduce, and then if you, especially you're teaching non-native language, you can say, oh, we call it artist or architect or producer. For example, in literary work, we call the producer, the author. So we teach vocabulary through the same practice as well. And then we mention when it was produced, what was the medium, technique, which materials like oil on canvas or watercolors or whatever is used, how big or small is it, especially if you're teaching online. Because it's important, like for example, it's 2 by 3 meters, but we are showing like a small picture. And then we mention artistic movement. So realism, abstractionism, impressionism. So we're educating the person holistically, this audience of your students. So you're educating them holistically, trying to touch upon the aesthetical movements and introducing the art. Okay. And then a next step, you can ask your students to describe the painting, sculpture, to brainstorm, to bring up their ideas. And this is very important to see because, for example, if you bring a picture for teaching history, you can ask them questions. So what is this picture about and how it's related? For example, we are going through the history of the 20th century. And that's very interesting, especially if you bring abstractionism or any other not so simple, not so evident pictures. So we describe, what does it look like? What is it? Is it a portrait or it's a still painting? And then we discuss, we're trying to engage their minds. And that's when they put their microphones on. That's when, at the time when the students switch their cameras on, they want to discuss, they want to express themselves, and they'd like to share their ideas. And it's important when your student is being heard, when you hear, when you show appreciation of their participation. And then the next part is actually the favorite of mine, when you analyze the texture, though you cannot touch, the patterns, shapes, line, light. And of course, if you can, engage your student in thinking of the time and space, and if there is a motion, what is happening on the picture on the screen. Some pictures are very dynamic and they show movements. If they can catch this and remember and then connect it to the subject matter which you teach, you've done a great job. So then you analyze all this form elements. And then slowly analyzing those elements of form, we ask them questions, or maybe it's somehow related to the character which we studied last time. Maybe it's somehow representing something, and then yes, and there are colors which are kind of similar, symbolizing similar things in many cultures. Of course, we have to focus on the cultural component, and especially if you're a foreign teacher, a teacher foreign for this culture, yeah, because there could be some misrepresentations. But still, your students will lead you and will help you to understand what they mean, what these colors represent, And then we're going to ask them questions, leading them through this analysis of form. So what kinds of lines are used and how it could be related? Some portraits have very strict angular shapes. And what is this for? Maybe the character is kind of related to the strictness and angles of those lines. And which colors again? Yeah, is it a warm or cold palette? And what texture says? Sometimes we can see classical works with the hidden brush strokes, and we can see very open brush strokes. You can see how the painter was painting using different tools, even not a brush itself. Yeah, and then I could speak about the light and this correspondence of light and shadow and what it could stand for in relation, for example, to your literary work, and then describe the composition in general, and then some depth and perspective. What is the context around, for example, a character, around the character. And then finally, you connect it to the subject matter you teach, to philosophical or historical or literary subject matter, and discuss how the artist, the painter, represented this or another idea in the painting in relation to some concepts. And then you help your students finding deeper and deeper meanings in a painting, sculpture, and of course in a motion picture, So these 4 steps I usually follow naturally without distinguishing them into actual visible steps. But I keep these steps in my mind so you can relate to them, maybe find some questions, resources. You can prepare special questions and resources for yourself as a teacher when you prepare to analyze this or another artwork during your class in humanities. And then the last one, of course, it's an optional one. You can just disregard this if you have no time in a class, or give it as an assignment for your home activities. So all the previous analysis can be organized and written by students, and they can write a critical review on a painting or sculpture, another artwork. And they can, of course, relate the painting or sculpture to the material you teach them. And this comparison is really important, It's the main part of it. So this is the final section, which you can apply whenever you have time or give it for focus group work. And okay, suggested activities which you can implement during the analysis of an artwork. So you can do some silent watching of the painting of or sculpture. You display the painting on the screen and give kind of 2 minutes for contemplating, or you can give it as group activities, divide them into groups, which is kind of could be problematic for online teaching, but still possible. Everybody's whose surname starts with letter A, yeah, they answer this question and think of this particular piece of the picture. Everybody whose surname starts with letter B will do this task. So it's possible to make even virtual discussion groups, focus groups. And then you start verbal analysis of a painting or sculpture in terms of its form and content. And of course, comparing and relating the artwork to the original philosophical concept or historical event or a literary work which you teach. And then writing a critical review, if possible, if you have enough time. So next part is kind of practical. As I mentioned to you, this picture is related usually to teaching philosophy, like I found it, especially for explaining how you can use this in teaching philosophy of existentialism and absurdism as a branch of the philosophical movement of existentialism. So you can tell your students this is oil on canvas, yeah? The measurement of it, it's been produced 1920 by Franz Stack. And then, of course, as I told you, you have to be selective. This naked body could work somewhere in Europe or the US or other parts of the world, but it could be questionable even for adult learners, for example, in the Middle East. So we have to be selective here. And this is the example of, yeah, it's very representative picture, but should we select it for that particular classroom, for that particular culture? So we have to be hesitant and thinking. So I especially brought as an example. So what we see here, and then we start describing. Of course, they would say, oh, it's red and black and naked body and the rock. And then the title, of course, of the painting. You can actually sometimes play a trick and hide the title of the painting. Or for example, just show the picture, the painting on the screen. What do you think it is? How you could title this painting? And then it's obvious, a man is trying to bring the rock up, and those people who are studying philosophy, they could hear about the myth of Sisyphus and eternal recurrence and the philosophy of absurdism and how we daily perform our routine duties and they repeat themselves every day. And yeah, it could be. And then you show them the title, and the title speaks for itself, Sisyphus. So what we can talk here about? We can talk here about symbols and concepts. For example, a naked body, a human is being born in this world naked and lonely. And he also passes away naked and lonely and defenseless, human in the face of his fate. And we have also contrasting colors. We can talk about Nietzsche and concepts of the good and bad, beyond good and bad. We can talk about representations of the red color, for example, blood, life, passion. It could be also allusion to biblical hell or hell in other religions, for example. A black color could stand for lifelong struggles, death, the unknown. And actually here students will help you because in their cultures it could be representing something else and it still will be related and still be valuable, even if it's different from what the painter meant. because we know that there is a difference from with the idea and the representation of the idea, and then interpretation of this idea by spectators. And then we see a rock. So this rock is Nietzsche's representation of Nietzsche's concept of eternal recurrence of human sufferings, daily routine, the absurdity of human life, if you take it that way, of course. And then we go to its origin, Greek myth of Sisyphus, and of course we touch upon the main theme. Could be at the end, Albert Camus, the myth of Sisyphus and the philosophy of absurd. That's how we relate, and that's how we bring. And of course, they will remember the picture, and they will remember the ideas, and then we can move to the question, okay, what's the meaning of life, and should we just pull this rock up when it's falling down and you cannot stop this process? Maybe we should just sit down and relax and enjoy the peacefulness of life, like famous Sadhguru teaches us. But this is a question, and we can discuss together with the audience, with the students. Okay. And the next picture I brought to you to show how you can apply not so evident content of the painting in relation to historical events. As I teach in the Kurdistan region of Iraq. So I brought this one piece of art, the painting, oil on canvas by Dara Muhammad Ali. And the taken from the local gallery, Shenidov Gallery, with their permission. And I'd like to thank them for letting us represent this picture today. So the story of my country and how it is related to this woman embracing four children. And we know that Kurdistan is divided into 4 parts. So we can start from this. But I wouldn't recommend telling from the very beginning and keeping them intrigued and surprised. Let's say something is going on. Some kids are wearing this kind of clothes and other kids are wearing that kind of clothes. They are definitely suffering. And at the background, we see a picture made of 3 parts, which is a triptych, picture made of 3 parts. And then we see the domes. We can analyze all these elements and elicit this information from students. Okay, what are these domes? What do they represent? What is written on them? In Arabic script. It's something religious. It's something which is unifying all this, all the other shapes and forms and images. So we can discuss, and then of course you can help them relate this to historical events, and of course that's very surprising because it's just a woman crying and embracing kids, how it can be related. So I would recommend to introduce this picture in relation to the division of Kurdistan, into 4 parts as a result of several treaties, as a result of several treaties, Sykes-Picot Agreement, Sèvres Treaty, and Lausanne Agreement. So we can relate to the topic. And as I mentioned, this is just an example of how to use the material, the paintings in teaching different subjects. So you can say that the left panel, for example, represents Hammurabi, the first lawmaker. And the middle panel is related to Mesopotamia. The right panel represents the tragedy of Kurdistan, and this will be really emotional part for my students. If I taught history, I teach the history of literature, but not the history itself. So it's kind of related, but not that much. And then the relation to religion and Islam, and we have the script on the pattern La ilaha illallah on the domes on the left and right panels, and this kind of unifying. And then you can discuss many things like the rising sun, the smoke, mountains, the winged horse. So you can bring, these were ideas of mine, and this actually analysis of this picture is the result of my project with the University College London, Nahrain Network. They awarded us with £30,000 for the research on how to make educators more culturally aware. And we wrote a PG certificate program, as a result of this research, 1.5 years. We wrote this program, and we also aimed at incorporating local art, galleries, museums into teaching in the higher education as well. So this is the result, and we can talk a lot about this picture, about the green color. I think it's similar to every culture, life, rebirth. Cold colors could be sadness, mourning, and we can also discuss every child in the painting, and talk about them and how they are representing one or another part of Kurdistan. And of course, the river, water, life, birth, fertility, purification of soul. And we should remember the river of Euphrates and Tigris, two major rivers of Mesopotamia, if we teach history based on this painting. And then the next painting is more related to my area, and I've been teaching Hamlet, also in the MA program in English literature. I taught my students how to teach Hamlet. It's another level. So we usually practiced showing the model lesson of 20 minutes. And this lesson should incorporate this painting in teaching about Ophelia's death. As you know, the matter of Ophelia's death is being argued for many centuries. What happened to her? Did she commit suicide? Did this happen accidentally? She drowned, and how this happened, or maybe she was even murdered. Some Russian critics I've read stay on the idea that she was murdered because somebody told Queen Gertrude what happened to Ophelia, and then in the next paragraph, Queen Gertrude, you can see on your screens now, speaks about the death of Ophelia, but what happened to her and who told her the story of Ophelia's death? This is the question. So going back to the painting. So you can ask your students, do some silent watching. They'll be surprised. And then you will ask them, what is that? And it's exactly related to the Shakespearean lines, how she was absorbing water with her huge dress, and then she didn't fight for life. And of course, you can relate this story to the story of the model who was modeling for Sir John Everett Miller. Yeah, he bought her this dress, and she was staying in a huge bath tube and for many hours, and she was getting cold, and he was painting, and then she finally got sick and got pneumonia, and later in her life she kind of repeated Ophelia's tragedy in her personal life. So these stories help again to touch the emotional sphere of the learner. And what we can discuss here, there are so many symbols. I'll just bring some as an example of what you can do, and can take you one session. Of course, in relation to the text, you can ask your students to find the proof in the text and bring a citation, of course. So here we got a poppy flower beside the hand. You can exactly show this piece from the painting, and the poppy flower, and it touches a literary line so well as this is a symbol of a dream, yeah, dream and death, and in a flower language. And in literature, you know, it's very famous line, dream like death, Life is a Dream by Pedro Calderón, the Spanish playwright, and many others. So here she is agreeing to die. She is not fighting for her life. And then we can discuss the reasons why she's not fighting, why she fell in this river and she's not fighting. And this is how the artist represents his interpretation of Shakespeare, which is not the solo one, and we can bring more interpretations. Then we have these flowers, the rose, yeah, and the collection of roses in one bush. So they all stand for something. In colors stand for something. And then we can ask, how is it related? The green color and the white one, yeah, the white here could symbolize innocence, but it's also the color of death, as I'm presenting for Indian audience. I am aware of this, so it can be kind of related. And the green color is the color of life, birth, and all these life forces. So here you always relate to the text, yeah, and then you will find this and mermaid like a while they bore her off, yeah? Which time she chanted snatches of old tunes as her mouth is open. She is singing while dying. She agrees to die with songs, and she accepts her death. And then the garment, till that her garment's heavy with the drink, put the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. And this color, you see around the blackish color, it's this muddy death which we talk about. And you can discuss all these symbols. Pale face of Ophelia, innocence. Ophelia's hands are defenseless. She's accepting her death. And this could be also an allusion to crucifixion of Christ. If you teach for Christian audience, for example, and Ophelia's death has mysterious colors. Dress has mysterious colors in them. So, and then the language of flowers, which I mentioned on several examples. And then the next one I usually bring in teaching Pygmalion by George Bernard Shaw. This is the sculpture. Very interesting as it's a modern art, 1963. So here we got a tiny sculpture. The size is really small. It's not mentioned, but it's mentioned. It can be hardly seen. And we have the man, the creator, embracing his creation. And they are standing on a pedestal made of 7 plates. Which is again an allusion to biblical creation of the world within those 7 days, and the 7 days of the week, and this how things are. So it's very interesting as the sculpture here is very crude, and you can feel the texture. The stone is not pleasant for touch. Even on the screen you can see it. And what the minimalism of lines and shapes. And as you see, the woman, she's been born out of her creator, exactly as in Pygmalion, the Greek myth of Pygmalion, and then in relation to George Bernard Shaw's Pygmalion play. Yeah, and he look at the faces. The woman's face is not that well done. We can see the man's face, but they are kind of inseparable. We see inseparability. They're just sticking together in one stone picture. And of course, we will remember again biblical Eve and Adam, and how Eve was made of Adam's rib, and not as a separate individual, but made of him. And she's still related to him, but he's embracing her. He's embracing her, so we can relate this to characters of Pygmalion. And you see, it's very different from the painting of pre-Raphaelite classical painter. We see this modern art, but why not? You can bring this as well and explain as it's representative, and obvious artistic value is also there. So you can discuss whatever those elements I mentioned to you, creator and creation. And then so we are moving to the next part, which is the analysis of a motion picture movie. And here the idea is similar, so I'll just highlight those moments which are different. So here I'm showing you the scheme of methodology, the methodological scheme, which you can follow analyzing the motion picture with your students in relation to a philosophical context or a historical event or a literary work. So you can introduce a special glossary so that you teach language as well. Cast, cameraman, plot, scenes, music, decoration. So here we have different elements: the screenplay, dialogues, acting, characters, film producer, costumes, text, genre, setting, visual effects, colors, dynamics, and actors. And of course, we start with the same step. We introduce the producer, writer, the cast names, the genre, to have an idea what this piece is about and when it was made. And then we ask them to watch. You can show them the excerpt if it is during the class time, or you can ask them to watch the movie as a home task and then bring up the discussion after they've watched. Of course, it's good to recommend your student to take notes, and especially I ask my students to take notes what they like, what they dislike, what was their favorite scene, and especially important, how the movie is different or maybe represents the literary work, for example, in a different manner. And what are those differences? And maybe you've imagined another characters and another idea, and the general mood and tone and style, how are they related to original literary work, and how the screenplay writer introduced some changes, for example, omitting some scenes if you show them Hamlet movie, yeah, or how they are related to the text. And then we start discussing verbally on the next meeting. Of course, we have to evaluate the technical components of the motion picture here, talk about the producer's work, the plot, dynamics, how it is going slow or fast, and how the scenes are represented, which scenes were omitted, for example, how the actors are shown and the cameraman's work. Some of the movies, they show very close, so that you can catch the emotions of actors. And then you discuss the visual effect, montage, and costumes, and the film style in general, decorations and settings. And some movie makers, they spend a lot for decorations and settings we can discuss, and how it is related to a literary work. And of course, musical accompaniment here. So, and then we finally compare the motion picture and a literary work, or how a historical event or a philosophical concept was reflected in this motion picture. How close is a motion picture to its original source? Maybe it's a very free interpretation, and if it's free, which room for discussion it gives to us as educators? And then we discuss. So, and then they can write a film review, and this is an optional part. You can talk about story fidelity, if you talk about the thematic fidelity, if you relate it to a literary work. And they can write a film review using the glossary which you introduce to them, and of course not forgetting the matter of your teaching, a literary work, a philosophical concept, or a historical event. And then what are the class activities? You can watch an excerpt, you can watch a motion picture as a home task, yeah, not just simple excerpt, and then compare scenes from a literary work. Sometimes I just bring Hamlet. Yeah, we read a scene and then we watch a motion picture for better representation. This is like the 17th, 16th century, you know, so it's difficult to imagine. And then we compare them. And then we can analyze a motion picture in terms of its content and form, and finalize this everything in a written film review. So I brought something for an example here. It's a motion picture, a famous one, Groundhog Day, 1993. You know, Bill Murray is perfect here. He is waking up the same day, the same time, in the same small city, and he was supposed to spend there only one day, but this day is being repeated again and again. So what do we find here? It's another idea of teaching the philosophy of existentialism and absurdism here, when we have this eternal recurrence. And Bill spends in some sources, some articles, philosophical articles, which I was preparing for this particular discussion, spends 10,000 years to achieve the results he achieved, or in some estimations he spends several years. But at the end, he refocuses from himself, from his narcissistic perception of the world when everybody should serve him, but he's still running with this big rock He's still running with this big rock and pulling and pushing it up, and every day almost the same. It's almost the same. And here he focuses from himself to the other, from himself to the other. And here we can teach a shift from the Nietzschean perspective on this eternal recurrence to Luce Irigaray perspective when she argued, this great philosopher argued that when we shift to the other and we find the otherness and focus on them, we become better selves. And this is a great example. So in the references, I brought the resource, a very interesting article by Michel Faust, written 2012, Groundhog Day, in the Journal of Philosophy, how the others help Bill become a better person. So you can discuss this all matters, and then let me round up the session. So we can talk here about simulacra, the representations of without originals, the modern vices of humanity, and the meaning of life, immortality. Is it a blessing or a curse? When Bill wanted to kill himself, but he couldn't, is immortality a blessing or is it a curse? So we can discuss this everything. Or you can also compare two pictures with your students, like in the next example, when you teach Sophocles, Oedipus the King, you can bring a classical movie of 1957 or another modern, more modern interpretation, 1967. So here you can compare. And when I asked my students which one you like most and which stand closer to the text to you, they said the first one. Though in the first one, the actors were wearing masks. So they even didn't see their faces. You know what they told me? They told me, oh, teacher, they look more prestigious in their masks. So it was a shocking revelation to me. Then they didn't actually prefer more naked bodies and of Oedipus the King and his wife, mother and wife, they preferred masks, which were like Greek-like acting in those times. So let me round up the session. So I tried to bring these examples so that you can think of how to bring artworks make it more engaging and memorable and related, and also work on holistic development education of your students, as we do not simply teach the humanities, we teach like the development of soul. We kind of soul makers here, and if we are allowed to, of course, and we have to be very careful, of course, here, because the touching upon the student's soul is a responsibility, and we have to be really responsible. So thank you for listening. And this then I brought some references for your information, and you can have a look and refer to those sources. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you for listening. Really appreciate. If you have any questions, please, I'm ready to answer.
Thank you, madam. Very good presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Gita. Thank you.
Olga, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nagar. Thank you.
Priya?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. This lecture will raise a great foundation for a lot of different careers and will help us envision where we are going. We are grateful to you, ma'am, for gracing our program today as a resource person. And creator can create a revolutionary new product, and there is a need for the artist to illustrate the ways to use it. Thank you, ma'am. Really admirable seminar. May I now call upon a very good stating and bringing out the best in people, respected Dr. V. Sharmila, ma'am, Assistant Professor, Department of Education Technology, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, to express her gratitude. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you for the Priyadarshini. Am I audible, ma?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Good morning to all. We all know gratitude is the best attitude. At this moment, I would like to thank our resource person, and yes, a resourceful person, Dr. Olga Bebanko, lecturer, Department of English Education, Libanese French University, Erbil, the Kurdistan region of Iraq, who, despite her busy schedule, has found time to grace this occasion. Madam, we are really thankful for your wonderful lecture on visual artworks in teaching the humanities online. Your title itself tempts us to attend your session very eagerly, madam. And we are fortunate enough to attend your session today and gather a lot of information regarding how to teach humanities through visual arts, how to select visual artworks for teaching humanities online, and how to strengthen students' thinking style and skills through visual artworks and analysis of a painting, sculpture with a philosophical concept and historical event, and online teaching literature and philosophy through paintings, sculptures, and online motion pictures. On behalf of the organizing committee and on my own behalf, once again, I thank our Madam Babanko for making this moment very meaningful. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Dr. Sharmila. Thank you. I appreciate. Really pleased. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Madam.
Thank you, ma'am. Ram Ganesha, good afternoon, sir. Ram Ganesha.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Welcome,
Yeah,
sir.
good afternoon.
Priyadarshini.
Yes. Looking forward, respected Dr. L. George Stephen, Assistant Professor, Department of Pedagogical Science, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, to introduce a brief about our eminent resource person. Welcome you, sir.
Distinguished.
Good afternoon to one and all. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. It's audible. You can proceed. Audible, sir.
Professor, good morning. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Judge. How are you?
Yes, we are fine, sir. Fine, sir.
Yeah,
I'm very happy
please,
to introduce you, sir.
Please go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon to one and all. Professor E. Ram Ganesh is a highly learned professor, a leader for excellence in information communication technology, e-content development, and e-content design and production, and even for innovative teaching skills. Am I audible? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes. He is always active, agile, and dynamic in his technology department. Dr. Ram Ganesh sir is the professor and director of the Department of Education Technology, Bharidasan University, Trichy. As I already said, he is a leader for excellence in technology, and today also he is going to address on techno leadership in higher education, on which nobody would have addressed in the conferences. He is always benign and gentle, very gregarious. He is always benign and gentle, very gregarious, and he does his work very steadily and progressively. His achievements are very greater. I will enumerate one by one to all of you. Our esteemed professor, Dr. Ram Ganesh, has finished 2 PhDs, one in education and the other in computer science. He was rendering yeoman service as registrar for 2 years in Bharidasan University and finance officer for a year in the same university. He was the director college and curriculum development cell for more than 8 years. He was the director of a UGC HRDC Bharidasan University for 1 year, which is a very significant post, as everybody knows. Then he was chair, School of Education, Bharidasan University, then head of the Department of Technology from 12/1/2014 to 30/6/2019. He was adjunct professor at University Pendidikan Sultan Idri, Malaysia. Our professor is the coordinator UGC SAP from 2014 to till date. He is the director for Institute of Entrepreneurship and Career Development. Our distinguished professor Ram Ganesh has organized 33 workshops. See that he tried to find it very difficult to organize at least 5 to 6. Sir has organized 33 workshops together on e-content, research, and in higher education, which is something incomparable achievement of him. For him, number of PhD awarded is 13. Ongoing is 4. Sir has conducted 95 PhD Viva examination, and he has adjudicated more than 19 PhD theses. Congratulations, sir. He has produced more than 35 MPhil education scholars. Our respected professor has published articles in journals more than 70 in national and international level. He has published papers in conference proceedings more than 69. His authored and edited books are almost 26 in number. He has been invited for lectures and talks to many colleges, universities, and academic colleges for more than 500 events. Such a great personality is the resource person of this session, and he is going to share his expertise today now. Sir, welcome, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. George, for good words upon me. Distinguished organizers, learned participants, friends, good afternoon to all of you. Indeed, it is a great pleasure for me to be part of the faculty development program organized by a couple of universities, MGR University and Tamil Nadu Teacher Education University, which is the good sign for collaboration, because collaboration is the mantra of 21st century education. In that way, the leadership plays a vital role. As you all aware, technology is a great engine for change, and slowly technology has become part and parcel of our life. And we have our own apprehension whether we would be able to survive without embracing technology. As we have been discussing, it has become part and parcel of our life. But the greatest challenge on our shoulder is to explore how best we can use the technologies which are made available to us. Gone are those days we were deprived of information gathering or information sharing a couple of decades back, but that is not the case today. So therefore, what I mean to say, the kind of leadership in technology handling or technology using is very imperative. But at the same time, once the technology comes, once we start using technology, what happens? We wanted to compete with others. We want to compete with other forums, other high-profile institutions. This is the case. It is good actually, but whenever you compete with others, perhaps you can compete with others' positive attitude. People say the great leader will always intend to compete with himself or herself. Let me compete with myself so that I would be able to find a platform for better versions of myself. So you have to find better versions of yourself. Therefore, an element of education is very important, because education has the power to improve to extend your abilities more than what nature has endowed with us. Because education is a therapeutic to use technology effectively. The greatest challenge is how best we use technology, which really matters. Otherwise, technology will be a failure. Therefore, what I mean to say, the technology, what we call ICT, must be useful for building our capacities for 21st century education. As I hinted, when we start competing with ourselves, we would be able to have better versions of ourselves. How we used technology yesterday and how we use technology today and how we use technology tomorrow, or how we are going to use technology tomorrow, which is very important. Because, it gives me great impetus to remember the great saying of Albert Einstein, father of theory of relativity. He says, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. So you have to change. That's why I told you technology is a great engine for you to change. You change. And if you don't change, if you are adamant to change, then it is insanity. And how can you expect different results? The same Albert Einstein says, I fear that day technology will surpass human interaction. Technology will surpass human interaction and the world will create a generation of idiots easy. I fear that day technology will surpass human interaction and the world will create a generation of idiots easy. So what does it mean? How efficiently and effectively you use technology. Otherwise, you will be anxious. You will be fearful. Therefore, you need to equip yourself. You need to develop some leadership, which is very important. That's why I thought I can just address some points on technology leadership. But here, the teacher in the 21st century education is expected to have a blend of modern and traditional and modern knowledge. Traditional knowledge cannot be given up. So people are under the impression, even Sebastian Thorne, CEO of Udacity, very big online forum who organize online courses like EDX, Coursera, Udacity. The CEO of Udacity is Sebastian Thorne. He says, by another 30 years, 2050, maybe 2050, there will be only 10 institutions which will deliver higher education across the world. There will be only 10 institutions. In India itself, we have 993 universities, 40,000 colleges. Imagine by 2050, we are in 2021, another maybe 39 years, 31 years, 2050, he says, there will be only 10 higher education institutions in the world which will deliver higher education. Why? Because everybody will learn through online forum, he says. That is his perception. Everybody will intend to learn only through online. Now you see the scenario because of the pandemic. Now we are not able to access our traditional classrooms. And now we have a stopgap arrangement. Now you see a lot of webinars. Even Tamil Nadu Teacher Education University itself has been organizing number of webinars, and a lot of other universities offering number of webinars with no cost sometimes. It is good, but it is only a stopgap arrangement. Experts say the face-to-face learning cannot be given up. cannot be replaced at all. Because, you know, we have a beautiful shift right now from brick institution to click institution. You know, we had brick institution. Because of the pandemic, we have now click institution. That is a shift has happened. But here, totally, we are put into uncontrolled atmosphere, uncontrolled ambience. I think for about 435 participants are with me. But I would like to challenge myself, how many of them would really listen to me? And whether I would be able to see the gesture of them listening to me. It's a great challenge now. Therefore, it has got other limitations. Therefore, normally I call, as a professor of educational technology, online learning is a stopgap arrangement. Whenever it is warranted, it has to be done. Otherwise, the face-to-face, the integration, perhaps brick and click institution will be successful. I mean, brick come click institution will be successful. But there are some people who say, you know, the brick institutions will be replaced in the days to go. But brick and click institution will be very successful. So we have to develop a kind of leadership to address the brick come click institutions. It is not everybody's cup of tea, or it is not my cup of tea to get accustomed with brick come click institution. So I need to have a better leadership. Otherwise, I would not be able to win the confidence of the students. I would not be able to, because we are going to have students from all over the world. That's what our National Education Policy 2020 says. Every higher education institution is called upon to establish international office, and every institution will be encouraged to host foreign students. So we have students from Europe, we have students from East, Middle East, and then West. So therefore, it is possible because India is the country which introduced university to the world. The first university was introduced by India, Taxila, Nalanda, Vikramshila, Vallabhi. All these universities were established by India. India taught the concept of university to the world. Even people from across the globe came down to India for pursuance of higher education. During the 7th century, imagine, during the 7th century, Taxila was established. You know, only by 14th century, you know, all European universities and other universities were established. So in that way, we have got tremendous leadership, but we'll have to show the leadership so that we would be able to host students across the globe. That is the predominant aim of national policy on education, because the collaboration must happen, not because hosting foreign students. Collaboration is very important. The leadership, the very philosophy of leadership of hosting students across the globe is to collaborate with them. That's very important. That's why you see now the scientists across the globe put their mind back for by giving us a vaccination, whether it is Covishield, whether it is Covaxin, whether it is Sputnik or Pfizer, whatever may be the vaccination for coronavirus. It is the collaboration. You see, Covishield is a collaboration of, you know, UK and India. So in that way, now what happened? The collaboration is very important. So whether you have the ability to collaborate. So whenever you develop technology, you use technology, the collaboration is very important. How best you have the ability to collaborate, which is very, very important. So collaboration is the mantra. And you see the happenings in the 21st century education, where you need to build blend of the traditional and modern knowledge. Traditional knowledge is instrumental for you to build modern knowledge. Modern knowledge cannot happen just like that. For a simple example, when Professor George introduced me, I am known for e-content development, he said. You know how e-content came? It has got its origin from linear programming by B.F. Skinner. You know, B.F. Skinner is a serendipity that you could see the development. Serendipity, accidental discovery. When Skinner had to drop a daughter in the school, and he witnessed age-old methods were being adopted, and he was fed up. So he put his ideas to innovate himself, to contribute to the society, raising the concept linear programming. So that linear programming was instrumental for e-content development. Therefore, friends, understand the traditional knowledge is instrumental for building modern knowledge. So therefore, you need to have blend of traditional and modern knowledge. But unfortunately, you are able to have traditional and modern knowledge. But what about the skills that you have to represent the knowledge what you have in the familiar and unfamiliar scenario? So many times we have the knowledge, but we do not know how to present it unto the world, which encounter problems. So therefore, what I want to say is you need to equip skills to represent your knowledge. So that is a component of leadership. The leadership means what? A cluster of knowledge, skills, and character. That's what leadership is looked at. No, leader is a one who makes others leaders. Leadership is a responsibility, but not a position, we say. Therefore, you must be responsible to deliver your goods to the world. Whether you integrate technology, whether you use technology, whether you develop technology, now you have to be meaningful to them. So in that way, now the skills, which are very important. And now use the character, what you call the leadership. So what kind of leadership? Sometimes two kind of leadership that we find. Leadership of closed-mindedness. Leadership of closed-mindedness wanted to grow beating others. I wanted to grow beating Nasubramni or Priya Velan or George Stephen. So it is not that I become closed-minded leader. Now here teacher leader, you are a teacher leader in the sense, who is the teacher? Teacher is a one who dispels darkness, and he must share whatever he has. He must collaborate with everyone, whatever he has, because we have a long vision of helping everyone. So you must be a leader of open-minded. An open-minded leader wanted to grow helping others or developing others. I wanted to develop others. In that way, whatever the technology I have, I wanted to give you so that you should be able to really come along with me in terms of your teaching, in terms of your research, in terms of your extension, in terms of your technology development. So that is an idea. Therefore, you need to establish a kind of leadership which would help you to address 21st century capacities of learning. That's very, very important. 21st century capacities of learning. Now you see, one example I will tell you, because I'm given only 40 minutes. I don't want to take your time. You see, one example so that I would be able to concretize, make you concretize. You see, now we are in the midst of COVID outbreak. So now we use a kind of technology, whether it is Zoom platform or Google Meet or WebEx or Microsoft Teams, some are LMS, learning management system, or content management systems, or virtual lab, or augmented reality, artificial intelligence. Now we intend to use them to go with the rhythm. That's very important, no? So you have to keep updating yourself. And now what happened for 21st century, you need to have pedagogy 4.0. If you have pedagogy 1.0, sometime you are not relevant to 21st century education. So you have to have pedagogy 4.0, because we know pretty well that we are in the era of industry 4.0 revolution, where everybody must be equipped to develop technology using IoT, Internet of Things. Now we are talking about cloud computing. People are talking about fog computing. edge computing. So now every day, perhaps the tool that you used yesterday was not relevant today. The tool I use today is not relevant tomorrow. Therefore, we need to build a beautiful leadership. We call techno leadership. That is techno leadership to face the 21st century capacities, 21st century learning. That is very, very important. That is an idea I wanted to talk about. Now, another important thing is the 21st century. The thing is, you see, learner centric. You know, UNESCO came out with certain observations. There must be a shift from teacher centric approaches to learner centric approaches. But it was not the case a couple of decades back. Why? Because only it was teacher centric. Whatever teacher said to the students, it was Veda to them. They simply adhered to the teachers. So most of the students could not be creative. But now you see, you have plenty of resources and you can showcase resources around you so that you can make students constructionist and constructivist. Why? Because you have Web 1.0, Web 2.0, Web 3.0, Web X.0. So now you share your intelligence. Previously, you shared your information, perhaps through email or WhatsApp. Now you are able to share your intelligence. Perhaps we have got high-profile technologies, high-profile resources, and we would be able to share intelligence in Web X.0 versions. And that is the reasons you see you need to be well educated. You need to be educated in the sense education will help you to confront, challenge, guide, thereby enabling you to become better versions of yourselves. So you can be active and reflective. You can be active and reflective. The teacher leader must be active and reflective. How you can be active? How you update yourself? Whether you would be able to set a model for the students in terms of technology use. It is very, very difficult task. Nowadays, students know better technologies than teachers, if I am not mistaken. So in that way, now what happens? You have to be active. You must touch upon the recent developments, because you have every possibility to collaborate with a high-profile institution. Now you see one lecturer from France spoke to you. So you would be able to collaborate. This is a beautiful boon to you. So in that way, learner-centric in the sense, the learner must be made to think. That's why the great philosopher Socrates, he says, education is kindling of a flame, not filling of a vessel. Kindling of a flame, not filling of a vessel, he says. Therefore, passion and ideas drive leadership. That's very important. Passion. The leadership must have passion, must have quest to conquest. So passion is very important. Passion and ideas. If you call yourself leaders, the passion is very important. I must have passion to make my students, the recent developments in the concept which I deliver to them. I use all high profile technology, relevant technology, appropriate technology, so that I can promote learner centric. If I promote learner centric, every learner will be independent, will be a constructivist. Therefore, they would be able to address the national goals and national agenda. Yeah, India is a country which has got largest youngsters in the world. No other country in the world has got youngsters as we have. And our youngsters are shining. Our youngsters are shining all over the world. Can you spot out any country without contribution of youngsters of India? You can never spot out. Let it be France or let it be Europe, let it be America. You know, the CEO of Alphabet and Google, Mr. Sundar Pichai. You know, in that way, what I'm trying to say, we have got enormous energies. So make students learner-centric. That is the responsibility of your leadership. So if you want to become learner-centric, how can you, a teacher can promote, how can a teacher promote learner-centric? Embrace appropriate technology. For example, flipped classroom. You use flipped classroom so that you can pump resources to your students, so that students are exposed to different resources and they get a lot of exposure. They grow to the world. They grow to the world. So in that way, now what happens? Flipped classroom makes students learner-centric. I'm only giving you an example. Likewise, you can think of many more ideas, because passion. You must have passion. I must make my students updated. You must have a passion, okay, and ideas, because passion and ideas drive leadership, techno leadership. That's very important. So ideas also very important. Like, you must contribute in the flipped classroom. You must play a prominent role in flipped classroom. You can't just say, come on, flipped classroom, this is the way you use it. You have to contribute an idea which has not existed anywhere. So you have to really do a lot of homework. Being a leader is not an easy task. Perhaps you have to put in your hard work, because you have to convince people, you have to persuade people. So convincing Dr. George Stephen and Dr. Naga Subramani or Priya Velan is not an easy task right now, because you have to use your knowledge, use ideas, you have to generate ideas. So generate ideas, integrate ideas in your concept called flipped classroom. You can make students learner-centric. So the learners are very confident of the teachers. Come on, whenever I go to the teacher, I get ideas. I will be able to fulfill my desires. So in that way, you have to make students learner-centric. And you must be an innovator. Innovator in the sense, you see, creator, innovator. What's the difference? Innovator, leader, creator. Leader as an innovator, leader as a creator. What is the difference? Leader as an innovator intend to use new methods, modern technologies, new ideas. Whereas creator will create an idea which has not existed so far. That's the difference. Here, advancement of knowledge, here new knowledge. Creator will have new knowledge, innovator will have advancement of knowledge. So if somebody uses Zoom platform, I don't want to use it as somebody has used. You use your idea. You make a difference. That's what I just call upon you. So don't have the same idea what somebody has presented unto you. Perhaps you put your thoughts inside. That's a leadership. You must be an innovator. And as I told you, collaborator. Collaboration is very important. That is a beautiful thing which happens around the world. Now you see, MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, came forward to share all its resources. They have prepared resources for 1,900 courses, but open access. Perhaps they are coming forward to share so that everybody will be able to touch upon the resources and everybody will be intelligent. That's what Kaniyan Pungundranar, a very famous poet, says, Yadum Vore, Yavarum Keli, Tidum Nandum Pradadana. So whatever the initiative we take, let the world enjoys. That's the concept you must be broad-minded leader. And you see, some of them, they don't want to share their PowerPoint because they put their hard work there. If I send PowerPoint now, easily they can just get it. That's a philosophy. That's one school of thought. But you see, you share your ideas with everyone so that you make everybody challenging, everybody intelligent. That's very important. So you can collaborate. So you, the kind of, important quality of a leader, techno leader, he has to collaborate. However, he has got the mastery. I may have a mastery in computer science or the particular technology, but still I must be inclined to collaborate with better performers. There are some better performers or more huge better performers than me, and I want to share my ideas with them so that I would be able to understand the bottlenecks, the limitations of my use of technology. So in that way, we have to grow. We have to grow along with the high profile institution, high profile resources. So collaboration is one of the important qualities of a techno leader. That's very, very important. And the techno leader must be resilient and agile. Resilient. What resiliency? Dr. Swaroop Sambat Rawal, a very, very resilient teacher. She was the Miss India once upon a time, and she was, identified for Global Teacher Prize 2019 by America. Only 10 people will be identified in the world for this prize, Global Teacher Prize, and she is the recipient of it. Swaroop Sambat Rawal, she had a beautiful intentions, passion to teach street children who are deprived of education. She taught many more, thousands and thousands of street children who were deprived of education, who were uncivilized. He made them civilized. Kind of passion, kind of ideas, what she has developed is very important. And resilient leader, why resilient? Now you see we are in the pandemic. Who is resilient? One who is able to come out of the difficult situation as swift as possible. Instead of whispering the pandemic, let us, explore ideas to learn each other, learn from each other. That's very, very important. So in that way, that's what Alvin Toffler used to say. In the 21st century, illiterates are not those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, relearn. Learn, unlearn, and relearn is very important. So learn, unlearn. Perhaps whenever you attempt to use new technology, you may have to unlearn. Sometimes it will make you unlearn also. Unlearning is a very powerful learning, and you have got to relearn. So in that way, resilience is one of the important qualities of techno leadership or techno leader. So whenever you come across a difficult situation, you should not be discouraged and you should not give up developing a technology. Come on, for this scenario, I can't do anything. See, almost 1.5 years we are not able to access our institution. Nobody, I am not able to access my Bharidasan University. You are not able to access your institution. But still good learning continue to happen. Because we explored some kind of technology where we would be able to share our ideas. In that way, you got to be resilient. And you see, friends, the techno leader must be digital native. As I told you, students are digital natives and teachers are digital immigrants. Digital immigrants means what? Teacher now only start learning technology which are already mastered by their students. Come on, I learned Java applets now, but my students have already mastered. So my students are digital natives and I am only digital immigrant. So there is a big gap now. When your students are immigrants, when your students are natives, digital natives, and if you are digital immigrants, there will be a gap between yourself and your students. So you must thrive to be digital natives, master technology. That's very important. Not, sometime, we just borrow technology. Somebody will be hosting. We may not be able to share even our PowerPoint. Somebody will be hosting. and you nicely take advantage or nicely use the technology. But you have to develop technology. That's a concept now. UGC has added one more dimension along with the teaching, research, extension, technology development. This is another. Every teacher is required to develop technology for their students, a kind of leadership. So techno leadership means the teacher is a technology developer. Previously, teacher is a technology user. Now teacher is a technology developer. So you must be digital native. Therefore, a kind of digital age learning culture you must understand. Digital age learning culture. But you see how when I delivered yesterday a lecture, there was one important question. Somebody asked me, how can you really make students, attentive using online learning? There is a couple of weeks back, I read Hindu editor. One of the famous leaders, very leader is in technology. I don't want to name him. He says, online learning is a mockery of education, he says. I'm sorry to say, if I'm not mistaken, that he writes like that. Online learning is a mockery of education. That means what extent you would be able to make your students understand you, or what extent you are able to evaluate them, what extent you are able to assess them. So understand the digital learning culture. You use digital platform, you use digital classroom, but there must be a concept of evaluation is very important. But now you see, we organize, including me, organize a lot of webinars, seminar, conference, international conference. But how far these conferences are useful? Webinars are useful to students, useful to the participants. Whether these webinars have really improved their competency. Have you ever taken steps to evaluate their performance? That's what, Harvard University, Stanford University, whenever they organize things, they keep on contacting the participants. For 1 year, they keep contacting. Was it useful? Simply, they keep evaluating them, assessing them. Therefore, participating in a webinar is not as easy as possible here, what we organize. You will be contacted by the institution for about 1 year. What kind of improvement you got it? And that is how they try to improve their technology. That is a kind of culture, digital learning culture that you have to learn. It is not just listening to me and go off. So you must be grateful. So somebody said, grateful, Priya, well, I guess. Grateful in the sense, grateful in the sense you must apply the knowledge what I have given you. Otherwise, you are not grateful to me. It is not writing in the chat, okay, very informative session, good things like that. And what extent my talk, made you change your attitude towards tech leadership, which is very important. If it is not there, then I am not a good speaker. I have not done anything. So likewise, you got to assess your technology, which is missing. Digital age learning culture, a kind of culture you have to imbibe, you have to develop among the participants, so that the participants, will always be very keen to the speakers, and they wanted to have takeaway values. Come on, this is my takeaway. Today, 2 lectures I have listened. Okay, these are the takeaways. So likewise, digital culture must be excellent. And excellence in professional practice is very important. Professional. You must not be amateur. You are a teacher. You must be a professional. So a kind of leader, then you must be a professional. And systematic improvements measure digital citizenship. This is how technology integration by teachers have to happen. We call it technology leadership, techno leadership. So we call it techno leadership. Leader, takes the people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. That's also very important. Whatever I use the platform, you also use the platform. I use Zoom, you also use Zoom. I use Google Meet, you also. I use Google Classroom, you also go Google Classroom. I use Moodle, you also. Swayam. Okay. They are not a good leaders, he says. Great leaders takes people where they don't necessarily. What are the platforms which are inappropriate to you, which are not delivering goods to you? So that also you have to teach. That kind of leadership is very important. Technique. So that will make you unlearn. That's why Alfred Toffler says, 21st illiterates who cannot learn, unlearn and relearn. That's very important. So therefore, for which what you have to do is, you have to compete yourself, which is very important. That's why, the late Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, used to say, he, believed that competing with others is a distraction. Competing with others is a distraction, he says. So competing with others is a distraction. Competing with yourself is more important. How I utilized the technology yesterday and how I don't compete yourself in terms of technology. See, somebody else in a who is a student of Stanford University may use better technology than you. Don't compete yourself with anybody. Compete with yourself as far as technology integration, technology development is concerned, so that you would be able to introspect yourself and you would be able to spot out the gray area that you have to improve upon. See, improve yourself, which is very important. When I compete with somebody who is a better performer, I will be jealous, I will be envious, and that makes me not learning anything. So compete, let me compete with, come on, I'm asked to deliver lecture today. Come on, what are the things which I could not do with? Maybe let me compete with men. Next time when I have to speak to them, perhaps that I should see to that it is not repeated. So in that way, you have to think. And you see, risk mitigation is, you are a risk taker. Any leader is a risk taking, must have risk taking behavior. But mitigate risk. That's very important. Mitigate risk. Perhaps low risk, high risk. You see, if you jump, you will be fallen into valley. You cannot be got it back. So too often, and we are all obsessed to use technology. It is good, but the translation is the prospecting, refining, mining, and adding value. This requires an ecosystem. So you have to create an ecosystem, not only simply sharing PowerPoint and talking. Now, what you have to do, whether it is more about prospecting, refining, mining. So the translation and innovation must be there. That would really make you sometimes minimize the risk. You must be risk taking, but minimize the risk of learning of students. That's very important. So if you want to minimize the risk of learning, your innovation translation must be there. If you use the tailor-made technology as it is, sometimes the risk is very high for the students to learn, students to get you. So therefore, you have got to translate the technology what you have. The kind of leadership you must develop actually. Friends, I am so happy that the internet users in India, you see almost 20 to 50%. Okay, 493 million people are expected to use internet. So in the days to go, almost, everybody will intend to use internet. I'm so happy. That is the reason why technology is not equalitarian. Technology is not equalitarian. As a leader, you must understand, techno leader. Why? Because I am not supporting fully online learning, because 47% of our population are not able to have internet facility. The children do not have the internet facility. Then how can they participate in the webinar organized by Tamil Nadu Teacher Education University or MGR University? Because they don't have facility. So equalitarian now, but our country, has taken very good efforts, to provide internet facility in the days to come. So technology will be equalitarian in the days to come. So in that way, we'll have to really think about it. But I'm happy to use, number of people use social media. I'm so happy that they use social media. but let them be aware of the policy stages. Whether you are latent or emerging leader in technology, or established leader in technology, or advanced leader in technology, where you are, accordingly, the policies must be considered to improve yourself next day, tomorrow, the next day. Are you a latent? That means you have only bare minimum technology that you can use. If you are emerging, perhaps you can just give attention to the theme of technology. You are established, perhaps deepening attention you would be able to provide for technology, use of technology. And you are advanced, now you are able to give best practice in technology. So you have to have a shift from latent to advanced. So where you are, perhaps you can assess yourself. Is technology leadership of teachers a way forward right now? Certainly, because you see, Future Skill Report 2019 says that there will be 4 types of higher education institution in the days to come. One is the Future Skill University, which will focus on complex problem solving, sense of responsibility to find a solution for the complex problem solving encountered by the world. And 63% of the academics across the world agreed that this would exist in the days to come. Second institution will be networked university that focuses on digital import and digital export to solve the problems. Because as a leader, you must know what is going to happen so that you will be futuristic. You must know what should happen, what is going to happen, so that you have your preparedness. If any other outbreak, now corona, at least coronavirus, if we are able to get rid of, how can we be confident that any other outbreak would come and affect us, So we have to be prepared. You must be futuristic. So in that way, the networked university, and third university, my university, where students are going to develop curriculum of their own interest, not board of studies or academic council. So students will develop curriculum, and teacher must be prepared to win the confidence of students. So I'm so happy that students develop. And lifelong higher learning university, whatever the interest I have, the university must be able to feed me. Personal skill needs, competence demands. I want to be a basketballer, perhaps I want to be a cricketer, perhaps the university must give me the relevant knowledge to me so that I can be a best basketballer or cricketer. So in that way, the lifelong learning would be. So there are 4 types of university, they say. And you see, there must be a shift, paradigm shift from technology infrastructure to technology leadership. You go to some institution, they will say, we have smart classroom, we have video conference facility, all these things. But how many of the teachers would use them? Nobody. So now those smart boards and smart or blackboard, the software, or smart boards, whiteboards are only kept abeyance. They are not used by the teachers. What is the use that? So technology infrastructure you set up, it is good, but don't stop with that. You have to have the shift from infrastructure to leadership. You develop technology with the technologies what you have. That's very important. And from ICT culture to ICT use is very important. Everybody says, let us create ICT culture. Okay. But are you using? The one article says, for about 85% of the scholarly resources in research are not fully utilized by the research scholars and research supervisors or researchers. Then what is the use, you tell me? How can you have the culture, but you are not using it? Then it is not at all a culture. So that you must know. From going through ICT to growing through ICT. Simply don't go through the ICT. You have to grow through it. Whatever is required, you must be able to identify the appropriate technology and integrate. Going through ICT to growing through ICT is very important. From informing ICT to transforming ICT. Or ICT must reach the entire population, even rural girls and boys, remote villages. The ICT has to penetrate through them, penetrate them. So transforming them, that's what transforming, okay, is very important. As our Swamiji rightly pointed out, you give me 100 youngsters who have the nerves of steel and muscles of iron, along with minds like a thunderbolt. I can transform India #1 in the world, Swami Vivekananda said. So in that way, let us transform, informing to transform ICT. That's very important. Let us create good youngsters to the world. So that is also a shift must happen. From analysis of ICT to benchmark of ICT. Always you keep analyzing ICT, how it is good. I don't say it is bad. But benchmark of ICT means what? Compare the best practices of ICT, which is happening across the world. So in that way, benchmark of ICT, which is more important. And unpacking the framework for want of time, perhaps. You see, vision and planning. You have a policy linkages, funding is required, implementation authority, PPP. What is PPP? Private public partnership. So in collaboration, private public partnership. Government has to, collaborate with privates so that, the partnership beautifully happens. That has already been implemented, but it has to be reinforced. That's a vision and planning. You see the ICT leadership, you must have the power of using it, infrastructure, monitoring, and see whether it creates impact. That is ICT leadership. And teachers, you see, training is very important. Teacher must be properly trained with the recent developments of technology or high profile technology. Their standards must be taken and support they must get it. And administrators, must be inclined to permit the teachers to improve themselves, for training these things. Learning resources, you have to develop resources, disseminate, utilize, assess. That's a beautiful definition of educational technology. Educational technology. Develop, disseminate, utilize, evaluate. So learning resources, that's very important. But many times the learning resources what we develop are not assessed properly. So that is missing actually. So that will unpack the framework. And see another research also, monitoring and evaluation, testing, innovation, R&D, research and development is very important, because our research must be taken to the level of development, which is very important. Similarly, equity, so inclusion, everybody must use technology, and safety, security, ethics, all must be, taken cognitions to promote equity and excellence. That is the philosophy of our higher education. So therefore, in that way, I think the technology leadership is very, very imperative, and every teacher must be techno leader. Whenever you want to use technology, it's a stopgap arrangement, perhaps you must be, equipped to select an appropriate technology, and you must see how best you use technology. Now you see, if you keep on, organizing the, look at the other sites, the children, they have their lot of their physical problems, psychological problems, social problems they have. So how can you get rid of? As a leader, you must think. Now you keep on teaching through online platform. Now students have physical problem. Their eyes are burning, their ears are paining, and they have psychological problems also. Physiological, psychological, emotional, social problems. So what are we going to do? So we'll have to really develop a beautiful framework, putting your ideas. That's why I told you, passion and ideas drive tech leadership, techno leadership. So you have passion, definitely you will reinforce your ideas so that you can unpack a framework that would be of great help to the youngsters who can address the national goals. Therefore, use of technology, develop of technology is not a cakewalk. We love to put forth our commitment, accountability, and we have to develop our leadership, what we call techno leadership, so that technology can be effectively and efficiently handled by teachers like us, so that it will be useful to the younger ones. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Wonderful session. Nice presentation. Very informative, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. As you said, a leader of people, you have to be a great listener, a great motivator, be very good at praising and bringing out the best in people. Thank you, sir. I hope that today's section will inspire ideas and discussions around the ways that we can make our system a better place. I would like to call upon respected Dr. V. Sharmila ma'am, Department of Education Technology, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, on behalf of all to express her gratitude. Welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you, Priyadashini. May I audible, ma?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon to one and all gathered here. First of all, I would like to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellors, respected registrars, Deans of Faculty of Education of both Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University and Dr. MGR Education Research Institute for their support and motivation for organizing this international online one-week faculty development program. It is my great honor and pleasure to show my gratitude to one of the most remarkable personality in the field of educational technology, a tech-savvy person, an incredibly hard worker, and our resource person, Dr. Ram Ganesh sir, Professor, Department of Education and Technology, and Director of IECD, Bharidasan University. Sir, today we had an opportunity to hear your views on technology leadership for 21st century teachers. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and have shown us a new path to lead our students' community in the 21st century. செவிக்கு உணவில்லாத பொழுது சிறிது வயிற்றுக்கும் ஈயப்படும். We all know the Tirukkural is written by our famous Tamil poet Thiruvalluvar. The meaning of this Tirukkural is, when there is no food for the ears, give a little also to the stomach. Yes, of course, our resource person feed us by giving lot of information on techno leadership. Thank you, sir, for your gracious presence and for your sharing your knowledge and expertise exclusively for us. I would like to thank all the participants for your patience listening. A special thanks to the organizing committee for
If they have any questions, they can ask me.
Yeah,
if they have any questioning session, if they have any questions, perhaps they can ask me. Yes. Any queries or any questions?
Participant, if you have any queries, you can proceed.
You can share your
Dear
idea.
participant.
Otherwise, you can just chat. I'm just going through your chat.
Dear participant, if you have any queries, you can put it on the chat box.
Or you can unmute and ask me. Perhaps you can just put him. Yes, it's a private shop. Organizer can mute him.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
In the MOOC course,
Yeah.
but conducted by the several institutions, sir.
Yeah.
But these courses are not recognized by any universities for employment or other purposes. So what is the use of conducting this course, sir?
Yeah. See, suppose for example, Allison is one platform which organizes online courses free of cost. Certain courses, which are meant for your competence development. Suppose when you pursue courses in EDX, Swayam, Coursera, Udacity, it can be used for employment purpose. It can be used for employment purpose for all the world. But thing is, there are certain online courses, you must take it in that way that your competence level will be improved. Certain times, you should not, they even give you certificates also, but you have to see to that your competence level is increased. But there are certain platforms like Udacity, FutureLearn, EDX, Coursera, Swayam. If you participate and if you complete a course, whether it is certificate or diploma, that is valid throughout the world. Yeah, these are all high-profile institutions. Okay, Mr. Amanullah, are you convinced? Okay, any other question? It's a good question. Okay, any other question? Okay, if there are no questions, perhaps we can wind up the session.
Sir, 1 second. With the permission of Dr. Nagaswarmani sir, can I speak to Professor Ramganesh sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Sir, thank you very much, sir. Professor Ramganesh sir.
Thank you,
Your
Dr.
session was
Jan.
very wonderful, very useful, very continuous flow of language with all technology. So digital native, digital immigrant, or creative, innovative. Everything was very fine, sir. It was really wonderful, and I think all participants, they would have felt it. And you have proved that you are excellent, and you are a leader for excellence in technology. So on behalf of our committee, we congratulate you, sir. Congratulations, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. That's all.
So I
Sir,
wish,
may I call now Sharmila ma'am for vote of thanks, sir? Shall I proceed,
please,
sir?
please.
Ma'am, sorry, ma'am, as we interpret in between that. I would like to call upon respected Dr. V. Sharmila ma'am, Department of Educational Technology, Tamil Nadu Teachers Education University, Chennai, on behalf of all the organizing committee to express her gratitude. Welcome you, ma'am.
Yes, Priyadarshini. Am I audible, ma?
Good afternoon. Yes,
Yes,
it's
you're
audible.
audible.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. செவிக்கு உணவு இல்லாத பொழுது சிறிது வயிற்றுக்கும் ஈயப்படும். You all know that Tirukkural is written by a famous Tamil poet Thiruvalluvar. Tirukkural is when there is no food for years, give a little also to the stomach. Yes, of course, our resource person feed us by giving a lot of information on techno leadership. Thank you, sir, for your gracious presence and for sharing your knowledge and expertise exclusively for us. I would like to thank all the participants for a gracious listening. A special thanks to the organizing committee for organizing this faculty development program during this pandemic period. I thank Mrs. Priyadarshini, a research scholar of our university and a host for this today's program. Once again, I thank you all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you, madam. Okay. Thank you.
Sir, thank you, sir.
Ramganesh, sir.
Ramganesh, sir, thank you, sir.
Dear participant, important instruction for YouTube participants. The YouTube chat box will be enabled at the end of the section and the feedback link will be posted on the chat box respectively. So kindly refresh the YouTube link while filling the form without fail. And I would like to give my records and appreciation to all the participants for your cooperation. Thank you, one and all.
Dear participants, we have shared the feedback link in the chat box. Kindly fill it. Thank you, participants, for your kind cooperation. If you fill the form, kindly leave the session. If you have filled the form, kindly leave the session. Feedback link is shared in chat box. If you fill the form, kindly leave the session. Thank you, participants.
Dear participant, the feedback link is in your chat box. Kindly fill it and then you can leave the meeting. I repeat, dear participant, a feedback link for day 3 is posted in the chat box. Kindly fill it and then leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, participants, for your wonderful cooperation. The feedback link is shared in the chat box. Kindly fill it. After filling the feedback, kindly leave the session. Thank you, participants, for your wonderful cooperation. Those who have filled the form, kindly read the session.